Good morning, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to another edition of Breaking News. Today is Wednesday, the 5th day of November, 2025. And we only did one breaking news episode yesterday because about every story around was about the upcoming election for mayor in New York City, the pros and cons, what will happen, this or that, and getting the vote out and the such like. So we thought, well, just wait till today, and that is the next morning, to tell you what happened and then put it in perspective. Well, it's no longer theoretical. Zohran Mamdani will be the next mayor of New York City. And here's the immediate fallout. First, from YNET News: why Zohran Mamdani is the greatest threat to global Jewry of the 21st century. For the global Jews, he is the greatest threat, according to YNET News. And then from the Federalist, talk about the United States of America. New York City votes to elect communist Zohran Mamdani as the next mayor. Again, threats to the United States it's going to mean. And then from JFEED N12, poll claims nearly 1 million New York residents ready to bolt if Mamdani wins. Well, he did win, and so will they bolt? Will they leave New York City? And then we have this from the governor of Texas, Governor Abbott. He vows to impose a 100% tariff to anyone moving from New York City to Texas after Election Day. That's from Fox News. So you see the fallout already is something horrific, tremendous, and it's only going to get worse, like we warned about. So we're going to get to these stories in this episode of Breaking News and try and put it in perspective. This is a story, of course, we'll be dealing with from now on because it's a whole new America now, where you can elect a anti-Semitic communist as the mayor of the most populous city in the United States of America. The center for finance, the probably number one city in a lot of ways in the United States, and yet they elected this person who is anything but pro-American, pro market cap. I don't like to say capitalism, but pro-market based economics, just the opposite of what most Americans stand for. So we'll look at these stories and kind of put it in perspective. Okay, first of all, from YNET: why Zohran Mamdani is the greatest threat to global Jewry of the 21st century. And bottom line is, his most insidious talent is his ability to use Jews to prove that to other Jews that he's not anti-Semitic. The threat extends far beyond the anti-Semitism allegations that have shadowed Mamdani's campaign. In many ways, those charges don't even matter. Mamdani is anti-Semitic because there are Jews out there who believe he's anti-Semitic, just like he'd be considered racist, the article says, if there are African Americans who believed he was anti-black or homophobic, if LGBTs accused him of being anti-gay. That's how the claim of oppression works in America. We're compelled to believe accusers simply because they accuse. Here's the exception: except, of course, when those accusers are Jewish. At the center of this threat isn't Mamdani's paper trail of well-known anti-Israel slams, such as his reluctance to condemn Hamas or murderous calls to globalize the Intifada. This is standard progressive language of the cosmopolitan millennial elite, of which Mamdani is now the best-known caricature. What makes him so dangerous is his masterful ability to use Jews to convince other Jews that he's not anti-Semitic. More odious still is how he's used this tactic to manipulate no other minority besides Jews. We've seen these tactics at work throughout his campaign. His penchant for appearing at events with prominent Jewish surrogates, such as New York City Comptroller Brad Lander, who, like Mamdani, is a vocal supporter of the BDS movement that's boycott, divest, and sanction. That's anybody that deals with Israel. Or the endless number of well-branded Jews for Mamdani campaigners fanning across New York to advocate for his agenda. Or his high-profile Sukkot, that's during Tabernacles, visits accompanied by Lander to Satmar Jewish groups in Brooklyn. To the untrained eye, this looks as even the most observant Jews were warming up to Mamdani. But he's playing New York once again. The Satmars are infamously anti-Zionistic. What makes Mamdani's menace even more odious is how he's been given almost carte blanche by mainstream media, America's traditional first line of defense against dangerous racial and religious provocation. No other cultural figure, for instance, would have been allowed, as Mamdani was, to allege a Hindu-led genocide in the Indian state of Gujarat that it took place in 2002, when no such massacre occurred. We don't even believe there are Gujaratis Muslims anymore, he said at a campaign's forum earlier this year. Turns out there's actually about 7 million Muslims in Gujarat, a full 10% of the state's population. Indians, both in India and New York, were outraged by his blood libels. His relentless centering on Israel, its legitimacy and Jewishness to fuel his campaign betrays a double standard demanded of no other ethnic group. And this double standard, Mamdani's calculated, arrogant Judeo-mania, this is the anti-Semitism that hundreds of rabbis warned against before the election. They tried to gather all the Jews up in New York and said, please vote for somebody else, vote for Cuomo so this person wouldn't come in. It's this kind of arrogance that says, why defend charges of Jew hate when I can have Jews themselves do it for me? And if elected, this once casual, yet now commonplace manipulation of Jewish fear and beneficence is certain to become embedded in culture and politics across the nation. It's already happening. So here's the point. It's simple. There'll always be Jews who themselves are anti-Zionist, anti-Semitic, who Mamdani can call on to stand by him and climb on. And he's not one of them. He's not anti-Semitic. All the while, his rhetoric and now with his ability as mayor, he can do tremendous harm to Jews. And he's never going to be held accountable by the media, similar to Barack Obama. Same thing. The media is golden boy, and so he can do no wrong. So first of all, we have the damage to the Jews worldwide, not just in America, but the perception worldwide because of his position there as mayor of New York City. Now, let's move on to the United States of America, the damage that's there. This is from the Federalist. New York City voters elect communist Zohran Mamdani as the next mayor. Furthering the Big Apple's descent into communism, New York voters elected radical Democrat Zohran Mamdani to be their next mayor on Tuesday. He won about 50.4% of the vote. Next in line was Cuomo with 41%, so it's about 9% ahead of Cuomo, and far behind was Curtis Sliwa with 7%. What's interesting, the total votes that Sliwa and Cuomo got would not have even beaten Mamdani. We always heard, well, if Sliwa dropped out, he was the Republican candidate, then Cuomo could have won. Well, not according to the way that people voted. Okay, so the article goes on to say the race's outcome indicates a strong preference among New York City voters for the type of communist-style policies Mamdani has touted in years past and throughout his campaign. As the Federalist previously reported, now here's what he's called for. Get this. He's reportedly voiced support for taxpayer subsidization of so-called trans surgeries, including for minors, the health care for illegal aliens, government-owned grocery stores, free bus fare and child care, hiking the corporate tax rate, and limiting the NYPD's duties relating to mental health crisis intervention, homelessness and outreach, and traffic ticketing, according to the New York Post. In past years, he has also echoed leftist calls to defund the police, a position that became popularized among the modern left during the Black Lives Matter and Antifa 2020 Summer of Love riots. We can't reform a system working exactly as designed to control black, brown, and poor New Yorkers, Mamdani wrote in June 2020 tweet. We need to defund the police, get them out of matters they have no business in, free the thousands locked up unjustly, and invest the savings in those most impacted by state violence. Now, those aren't the only extreme positions a self-professed socialist holds either. As the Federalist previously reported, he's espoused pro-Hamas sentiments and was previously arrested for participating in a pro-Palestinian demonstration outside of Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer's New York residence in 2023. That didn't get much airplay, did it? He was actually arrested there. He's additionally cozied up alongside known jihadists such as Siraj Wahash, an unidentified co-conspirator in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. He's going to be sworn in as mayor on June 1st, 2026, according to the New York Post. He'll be the first immigrant to serve as the city's leader since Abe Beame was elected in 1974. So, not only problems with the city of New York, but also problems with not only problem with Jews worldwide, the anti-Semitism that'll be spouted from him, but also the problems in the United States of America with his different views that are totally anti-American, what we've known from the beginning. And it's going to be, like we said, start a wave of candidates similar to him, try and get elected, particularly in these big cities, which are very leftist. I think 14 of the top 15 cities are run by, or 19 of the top 20 largest cities in the United States are run by Democratic mayors. They're very leftist, and they're getting more and more leftist. So now you have this door opening up to socialism/communism. So, what's going to be the result? Okay, headline number three. Poll claims nearly 1 million New York residents ready to bolt if he wins. This is before he won. More Mamdani, it sure looks like it. New York is going one way, and New Yorkers are running far away from the nightmare that starts tomorrow and started today right now. And this is written yesterday as voters were heading to the polls. And basically, the Daily Mail took a poll, and it was amplified across conservative outlets like the New York Post, American Thinker, and others. Basically, 9% of the city's 8.5 million residents, potentially the largest single city exodus in the U.S. history, if it materializes. 9%, if he claims victory, claim they will leave New York. All right. Another 25%, 2.12 million, so they consider relocating, citing worries about skyrocketing taxes, rent freezes, and a perceived anti-business, pro-woke agenda that could tank the economy. So you got 9% said they will leave, 25% total, 2.12 million people said they may leave because of what's going to happen. It's going to be terrible. Okay, and this poll again was first reported by the Daily Mail and amplified, like we said, in other news outlets. High earners are especially spooked. 7% of those making 250,000 plus annually vowed to flee, raising red flags for Wall Street and the city's fiscal backbone. The poll breakdown conducted, it was from October 30th to November 1st, so just a few days ago, via phone and online among 1,000 registered New York City voters. Top concerns, get this, a proposed $10 billion tax hike on millionaires and businesses to fund free everything, rent control, universal child care, police defunding. One respondent quipped, it'll be like Detroit on steroids. All right. So internationally to the Jews, nationally to the United States, and specifically to New York City, he will do untold damage. Now, this has caused this last headline that's interesting. Headline number 4. Governor Abbott of Texas, he vowed to impose a 100% tariff on anyone moving from New York City to Texas after election days, from Fox News. Abbott's announcement came as New Yorkers head to the polls in a heated mayoral race. It was yesterday. He said, all right, you vote this guy in, you don't come to Texas or you have to pay a 100% tariff. He's a Republican. He made the announcement Monday, a day before the New Yorkers headed to the polls to choose a new mayor, in which has been closely watched election between Mamdani, a socialist/communist, and Cuomo. He says, after the polls close tomorrow night, I will impose a 100% tariff on anyone moving to Texas from New York City. All right. Now, he said that. Well, legally, it doesn't seem he will be able to do this, but here's the point. It's very clear. America is all the more divided than ever. Now, why is this important for our purposes? This is consistent with Sign 11 from our book, 25 Signs We're Near the End. No superpower will intervene on Israel's behalf when they're invaded. Ezekiel 38:39. Something will happen to the United States of America. Book is a free download from our website, Educating Our World, under the heading of Bible Prophecy. Now, what's going to happen? Well, we're going to be imploding from within. Can you imagine if we have mayors of other large cities that have the same communistic outlook? What will happen to the country? It's there's a war going on, it seems, not sometimes physically, between those with, traditional values and those that don't. And it's almost 50-50 split. But if you have people in control that are doing the woke agenda, then it's going to be, the demise of America, just that simple. So all in all, here's the bottom line of what happened last night. His election will cause a tremendous change in America, a change for the worse. It has now begun. Could be the turning point that turns America not only around, but upside down, which will make it a non-superpower in the world. Now, he can't run for president, in case you're wondering. He was not a naturally born citizen. He was born in Uganda. Only people born in the United States of America can be citizens, can run for president of the United States. And so we don't have that issue, but we have other issues. And so it begins. And this is, like we said, one of the huge worries, because he's anti-Jew, anti-American, anti-New York City, anti-everything that's holy and righteous. But he's got a way of saying these things. And just like Barack Hussein Obama, the press will give him a pass on seemingly everything he says. He'll be the new golden boy. They will love him because how left everything is. So this, again, is a sad reality here today, the day after, as we see the continual demise of the United States. Sadly, But again, like we've said for so many years, this is what we expect because of our lack of participation of being a player in last days Bible prophecy. How it all turn out and when it will happen, we don't know, but it looks like it started last night in New York. All right, we'll obviously have more stories along this line as time goes by. On our second edition, and we will do a second edition of Breaking News today. On our second edition, there are a number of other stories that need to be dealt with that are in the news dealing with Israel, Middle East, and what's going on there. But this is the big story because this could be the day, the big turnaround for the United States of America, fulfilling what the scripture says is the U.S. is conspicuous by its absence in last days Bible prophecy. I'm Don Stewart. Thanks for watching. Until next time, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless.